Hello and welcome. Tonight, Finance Minister Zainab Ahmed gives breakdown of 2022 budget. Government to spend more on security also sets aside a large chunk for National Population and Housing Census. The Independent National Electoral Commission discovers more than 62,000 cases of double registration of voters in Anambra, nullifies the excess. The President receives certificate of incorporation for the NNPC after the company was registered a limited liability company. And two journalists join the elite club of Nobel Prize winners, both to share over $1 million. Plus, international news from our London studio.
On business news tonight, 134 member countries of Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development reached landmark deal on global corporate minimum tax rate after years of disagreement.
And on sports news tonight, organizers of the prestigious Ballon d'Or Award announced 30-man shortlist for 2021.
And from Abuja, Nigeria receives 500,000 doses of AstraZeneca vaccine from France, boosting the nation's vaccination campaign.
24 hours after the President presented the 2022 budget through the joint session of the National Assembly, the Minister of Finance, Zainab Ahmed, and her team today gave a breakdown of the 16.39 trillion naira budget. The security sector tops the sectoral allocations with over 2.4 trillion naira, representing 15% of the spending plans. This is followed by infrastructure with over 1.4 trillion naira. The federal government is to spend 178.09 billion naira for National Population and Housing Census. The education sector will get 1.2 trillion naira, while the health sector will receive 820.2 billion naira.
O God of creation, direct our noble cause.
Day after President Muhammadu Buhari presented the 2022 appropriation bill of 16.39 trillion naira before the National Assembly, the Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Mrs. Zainab Ahmed, is giving a breakdown of the highlights of the budget to the public. She begins with an overview of the performance of the 2021 budget.
Of the expenditure, 2.87 trillion was utilized for debt service, while 2.57 trillion was utilized for personnel costs, including pensions and gratuities. As at the end of August, 1.75 trillion naira had been expended for capital projects.
On the 2022 appropriation bill, the minister says in aggregate that 4.9% of projected revenues is to come from oil-related sources, while 65.1% is to be earned from non-oil sources.
The projected aggregate revenue available to fund the 2022 budget is 10.13 trillion, and this is inclusive of government-owned enterprises revenues. This revenue is 24.8% higher than the 2021 projection of 8.12 trillion.
She also says the rationale for the revision of the 2022-2024 medium-term fiscal framework includes 100 billion naira additional provision for INEC toward advanced preparations for 2023 general elections, 400 billion naira for national poverty reduction with growth strategy, 178.1 billion naira provision for population and housing census scheduled for 2022, and 37 billion naira additional provision for MDA's electricity bills debts, among other things. The overall budget deficit is 6.26 trillion naira for 2022, which represents 3.39% of GDP, and it is to be financed mainly by borrowings from domestic sources, foreign sources, multilateral, bilateral loan drawdowns, and privatization proceeds, which the minister says are still within sustainable limits.
Nigeria's budget deficit is at minus 4.7% in 2021, and the debt to GDP ratios of 21.6% are the lowest amongst Nigeria's comparator countries.
In terms of the sectoral allocation, Defense and security sector takes the lion's share of 2.4 trillion naira, followed by infrastructure with over 1.4 trillion naira and education with over 1.2 trillion naira.
We also provided 54.87 billion for Gavi immunization funds, including counterpart funding for donor-supported programs, including global funding. We also provided 54.05 billion transfer to the Basic Healthcare Provision Fund. So the Basic Healthcare Provision Fund has been on statutory transfer since 2020, which means it's on autopilot. They get the 1% of the CRF.
The presentation generates reactions majorly on poor revenue generation in the country, over reliance on oil revenue sources and borrowings to fund budget. While the public presentation of the appropriation bill by the federal government is commendable, Nigerians are however waiting to see how funds budgeted will be utilized. Emperor Simon, Channels Television News.
Anambra State is getting the most attention from the Independent National Electoral Commission, and this is because less than a month from now, the governorship election will be holding in the state. Earlier today, the commission held a consultative meeting with heads of political parties, where the chairman said during the cleanup of the registration data, it was discovered that 62,698 people who were already registered voters re-registered, making it a double registration. This is the second meeting the Commission is holding this week after a similar one held with the Election Security Committee. There are 2.5 million registered voters in Anambra State, with 18 political parties participating in the election next month.
This is the second meeting that the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, is holding this week to discuss preparations for the Anambra State governorship election on November the 6th. And in attendance are heads of political parties,
security agencies.
The INEC chairman gives an update on the voters' registration cleanup exercise, informing the meeting that the commission has uncovered over 62,000 double and multiple voter registration in the state.
In Anambra State, a total of 138,802 citizens completed the registration, including applications for transfer and requests for replacement of lost, damaged or defaced PVCs as required by law. However, in the process of cleaning up the registration data, we discovered that many previously registered persons actually re-registered afresh. As a testimony to the effectiveness of our new system for checking double and multiple registrations, the Commission found out that some 62,698 persons who are already registered as voters in Anambra State went ahead to register again. These double or multiple registrants are invalid by law. We have archived these registrations and will not print new PVCs for them.
The INEC chairman also makes an appeal to politicians not to exacerbate the security situation in the state ahead of the elections.
Security remains a major challenge to our preparations. For the political parties, the heinous attacks have truncated campaigns, making voter mobilization and sensitization impossible. I wish to appeal to all political parties and candidates not to exacerbate the feeling of insecurity in Anambra State through unguarded utterances and actions.
There are over 2.5 million registered voters expected to participate in the Anambra State governorship election. For now, all eyes are on Anambra State, and how the whole exercise plays out in November will depend so much on how some of the resolutions from these meetings are implemented.
And while members of the Nigeria Civil Society Situation Room have expressed concern over the security situation in Anambra State, they're calling on critical stakeholders in the state to do all they can to stop the rising insecurity in the state ahead of the November the 6th governorship election. Speaking at a meeting with the Anambra State Resident Electoral Commission in Abuja, convener of the Situation Room notes that, if not addressed, the security situation in the state could lead to voter apathy. The Anambra State Resident Electoral Commissioner has, however, expressed confidence in the security arrangements in the state. Staying with politics, the former presidential candidate of the Young Progressives Party in the 2019 presidential election, Professor Kingsley Moghalu, has joined the Africa Democratic Congress to pursue his 2023 presidential bid. He told a news conference in Abuja that his desire is to take Nigeria higher and make her the envy of other nations if he becomes the president.
For the past year, I have been part of a group of individuals and political parties working towards the emergence of a quote-unquote third force in the Nigerian political space. Millions of our countrymen and women, tired of the failure of traditional politics, are waiting eagerly for the emergence of such a platform. I am pleased to announce today that I have joined the African Democratic Congress, ADC, political party.
The former governor of Ondo State, Dr. Olusegun Mimiko, says one of the ways Nigeria can overcome youth restiveness, banditry and insecurity is through proper restructuring of the country. Dr. Mimiko, alongside some prominent Nigerians, debated this at a colloquium held to honor the national chairman of the National Conscience Party, Dr. Tanku Yunusa, who turned 50. Issues regarding Almajiri area boys and baby-making factories were discussed.
A gathering of some like minds, some prominent politicians and some civil society persons in Abuja, the nation's capital. It is a colloquium on national issues, and the focus of the conversation is finding solution to the plight of Almajiri children roaming the streets, baby factory menace and banditry, some of Nigeria's deadly challenges. Lawyers who led the discussion began the debate on the problems and the nation's constitution.
We need to find the soul of Nigeria, and we need to found a new republic. And that republic has to be found by the forgotten people. And we must form a government at the national, state, local, and community level that wants to eliminate poverty.
The question of Almajiri, the question of baby factory, they are issues that are based on our structure and system, which does not allow, for ordinary Nigerian citizens to thrive. And today, this so-called Almajiri boy that we neglected in those days has now become the vulnerable person that Boko Haram can use to bomb, kill, and maim the people.
Other notable speakers highlight the issues the political leadership of the country needs to pay keen attention to.
The state has abdicated its responsibility, and the ungoverned spaces of the country has been taken over by bandits and terrorists.
We need to create an alternative group, an alternative leadership, an alternative narrative, an alternative elite. We need to create an alternative vision for Nigeria.
And some of them prefer solutions.
We need a pan-Nigerian narrative. I, for example, believe that restructuring this nation is the way to go. But it's not because it is in the interest of the South alone or a counter-interest of the North. It is because I believe that every part of this country will be able to be more productive and actually get us to live like human beings.
We should be thinking of how to help one another. A poor man in the north is not different from a poor man from the west.
The discussion was mainly on some of the challenges highlighted, but in the end, it unearthed many more issues begging for quick solution in the polity. Sean Kimaloye, Channels Television News.
In part 2, after the break, it's a fresh start for the Nigeria National Petroleum Corporation, NNPC, as it becomes a limited liability company. Stay with us. Welcome back. And if you've just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 live from Channels Television Lagos. Here's a reminder of our major stories. Finance Minister Zainab Ahmed sets aside a large chunk for national population and housing census and security as she gives a breakdown of 2022 budget. More than 62,000 cases of double registration of voters discovered in Anambra State. Independent National Electoral Commission nullifies the excess. NNPC now registered as a limited liability company. President Muhammadu Buhari receives its certificate of incorporation in Kaduna. And 2 journalists share over $1 million as they join the elite club of Nobel Prize winners. The president has received the certificate of incorporation of the Nigeria National Petroleum Company Limited. President Muhammadu Buhari was presented with the certificate at the State House today by the Registrar of the Corporate Affairs Commission, Alhaji Garba Abubakar, and the NNPC Group Managing Director, Mr. Mele Kyari. Upon receipt of the document, the president asked the board and management of the company to do more towards attaining the status of a global national oil company. Our State House correspondent, Gloria Umezuki, reports.
The signing of the petroleum industry bill into law in August by the president has elicited a chain of transformation within the NNPC, now a limited liability company. Receiving the certificate of incorporation at the State House, presented to him by the board and management of the newly registered NNPC Limited, President Buhari doubles his expectations of the firm.
My expectation is for a speedy transition by taking all necessary steps required to transfer assets, human and material, and without wasting time, capitalize the company as required by the Petroleum Industry Act.
Accelerating growth in Nigeria's energy sector is undoubtedly pivotal now, especially as the new company has the largest capitalization in the country.
We know for sure that after this event, a number of things will happen, which will make also further entrench the accountability and transparency the company must do under the provisions of the law, and also finally and ultimately deliver much more value to its shareholders, the teeming Nigerian population.
In line with Section 53, subsection 1 of the Petroleum Industry Act, the president, who doubles as the Minister of Petroleum, had directed in September the incorporation of the NNPC Limited.
All requisite fees had been paid to the Corporate Affairs Commission and to the stamp duty account. This is one company that has the largest capitalization in the history of this country. It has been registered with an initial share capital of 200 billion. There is no existing company in Nigeria that has this share capital threshold.
As expectations soar following the transformation of the NNPC Limited, there are still critical questions over how much confidence will the new board stoke in investors such that Nigerians will begin to see accelerated development within the energy sector. From the presidential villa, Gloria Umezuki, Channels Television News.
And in the meantime, the president has arrived in Kaduna, where he is expected to attend the Nigeria Defense Academy passing out parade, which will take place tomorrow. Outside our shores, the vice president has been speaking on the fate of Nigeria and other African countries as the energy transition discourse continues across the world. Professor Yemi Oshimbaju addressed students at the Imperial College in central London today as part of a series of UN energy events taking place ahead of COP26, which is due to take place in Glasgow next month. The Vice President, who spoke with our London correspondent Juliana Olayinka after addressing the students, touched on some of the challenges African countries are facing on the road to a clean energy transition.
Here we're talking essentially about the process of getting to net zero by 2050. We're of course concerned that if some of the plans that the wealthier countries have are put into effect, we may be shortchanged. And that's because we already have seen the growing advocacy for defunding gas projects and gas investments. And for us, I mean, gas is an important transition fuel. And if for any reason we're trapped in a situation where gas projects are defunded, then not only will we have the problems of energy access and the implications for poverty, for extreme poverty, and the deepening of poverty, but also we will get to global warming anyway, where even today, I mean, Africa is the lowest emitter of pollutants and possibly one of the greatest sufferers of the effects of climate change. So if added to that, energy access is denied us, and the possibility of a fair transition to net zero is denied us, then for us it's essentially we're trapped. It's a catch-22 for us. And so one of the reasons why we're here is to prepare a lot of our partners and allies and, in fact, some of our academic collaborators for what we think is going to be a very important campaign.
And some cheery news here. 5 more abducted students of Bethel Baptist Secondary School in Kaduna State have been released by bandits. Also released is the matron of the school. President of the Nigeria Baptist Convention, Reverend Israel Akonji, who broke the news, says both the students and the matron were released on Friday. He, however, says that 4 remaining students are expected to be released soon. A total of 121 students and staff of Bethel Baptist Secondary School in Chikun local government area of Kaduna State were kidnapped from their hostels by bandits on July the 5th, 2021. Time now to head to our Abuja studio for more on the news at 10 with Gloria Umezuki. Hello, Gloria.
Hello, Bukola. Good to see you. Quick intervention measures in tackling the COVID-19 pandemic prevented the doomsday prediction on the continent. This is according to the France ambassador to Nigeria, Mr. Jerome Pascoe, at the donation of 500,000 doses of AstraZeneca vaccines to Nigeria. He says that Nigerians would not be barred from accessing the European country if they can show a proof of being vaccinated.
France is the latest country to donate COVID-19 vaccines to Nigeria, with a little above 500,000 doses of the AstraZeneca vaccines, bringing the total number of doses in the country to 10 million.
You need 400 million doses normally.
Officials from the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency, the World Health Organization, and the French ambassador take a tour of the COVID-19 cold chain facility in Abuja. While assuring the country of more donations, the French ambassador says Nigerians would not be isolated on arrival in France.
The borders are fully open for Nigerians who are fully vaccinated. So if you have a proof of vaccination, as that is said, you can go to France. You do not need to have a COVID test before boarding the plane. You do not need to have quarantine when you are in France. And you can, with your certificate from Nigeria, you can get the sanitary pass, which is required in some places to enter restaurants, museums, and so on.
As the federal government and the World Health Organization look forward to getting about 40% of the country vaccinated before the end of 2021, the government has placed measures for accountability of all vaccines that has arrived in the country and distributed accordingly.
Over 500,000 doses of AstraZeneca to Nigeria is a demonstration
of France's confidence in Nigeria's ability to work not only as a partner, but also a very critical ally when it comes to the global fight against the COVID-19 pandemic. The federal government has in place the necessary measures to ensure monitoring and accountability of the vaccines.
Looking forward to having at least 40% of Nigerian population vaccinated by end of this year, using different vaccines that are approved by NAFDAC. And AstraZeneca is one of them. It was the very first approved. We are really happy and glad that France could take this step at this stage.
This latest donation is expected to assist the government achieve herd immunity, which is required to reduce the impact of the virus on the country.
When the News at 10 returns, Katsina State government enacts new policies in a bid to attract investment. Plus, 134 member countries of Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development finally reach a landmark deal on global corporate maximum tax rate. That's some business news. Do join us again. Welcome back. You're still watching the News at 10, coming to you live on Channels Television. The Federal High Court in Abuja has fixed October the 18th for judgment in the fundamental rights enforcement suit filed by former Governor of Rivers State, Dr. Peter Odili, against the Nigeria Immigration Service, NIS. At the resumption of hearing today, counsel to the NIS, Mr. Jimo Adamu, asked the court to dismiss the suit instituted by the former governor, compelling the release of his international passport because the name on the document does not correspond with the name of the person who instituted the case. He argued that the document was impounded on the order of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, and tendered a letter by the anti-graft body instructing the service to seize the passport because Odili was on its watch list for some infractions. But the counsel to the former governor, Ifedayo Adedipe, prayed the court to dismiss the claim by the respondent that his client was on the watch list of the EFCC when he had not been interrogated or had any criminal charge instituted against him for any offense. A High Court sitting in Ilorin today sacked the transition implementation committees across the 16 local government areas in Kwara State. The court also ordered the conduct of proper election to usher in new executives. While delivering his judgment in a suit filed by Elite Network for Sustainable Development, Justice Hassan Gigile says the appointment of the transition committees to run the affairs of the third tier of government is against the provision of Section 7, subsection 1 of the Constitution. Away from the courts, the Katsina State government is focusing on boosting its economy, and one of the steps being taken is to revive the state's textile and garmenting industry in Funtua local government area of the state. This is in addition to plans to conduct an economic summit by December this year. The Katsina Deputy Governor, Mr. Miman Yakubu, explains that the Green Economic Zone project is anchored on 900 hectares of land, out of which 100 hectares have so far been developed. To some company news, Nigeria's GDP can be raised to $3 trillion by 2035 if the credit architecture is made accessible to rural dwellers, farmers and petty traders. This formed part of conversations at First Bank's Fintech Summit 5.0, held virtually and themed Open Banking and its Derivative Opportunities for Financial Ecosystem. In his opening address, the Managing Director of First Bank PLC, Dr. Adeshola Adeduton, believes open banking presents remarkable potentials that can redefine customer experience and overall value creation within the financial services system.
You first, First Bank.
It's the 5th edition of the First Bank Fintech Summit and the first to be held virtually, with experts, policy influencers, regulatory officials pumped up to discuss open banking and its derivative opportunities for the financial ecosystem, courtesy of First Bank of Nigeria PLC.
For us, open banking today demonstrates the practical function of these variables that I've covered, presenting remarkable potentials that can redefine product development, customer experience, and overall value creation within the financial services system, with significant multiplier effects, not just for players, but even for consumers of financial services products.
In his address, the keynote speaker, Professor Ndubisi Ekekwe, highlights the benefits Nigeria stands to gain if open banking is fully implemented.
There is only one thing I know that if we do in this country, progress, prosperity will be shared in abundance across rural communities. If every land in Nigeria is given velocity, I do believe that we have an optimality of moving our GDP to 3 trillion. And if we do that, it means that everything and every opportunity we have in Nigeria today will actually be increasing by a factor of 6.
Panelists at the First Bank Fintech Summit 5.0 lend their voices to game-changing impact of open banking.
Open banking does not mean that, my personal financial data would be open to any financial organization or any third party. It would only be open to the organizations that pass through, certain checks, certain audits of and have, tick in the box after checks from a specific regulator.
People already have an idea of where we're going. We just want to get to that consensus where once we have that consensus, we go to the, we come out with the guidelines, and in a short frame of period, we start feeling the impact of open banking.
Open banking at First Bank is a part of our core corporate priorities. The mission and the goal is for us to claim leadership within the market across all aspects of the value chain.
First Bank Nigeria PLC's annual FinTech Summit in the past years has been a platform of leading conversations and practices that have impacted the modern banking in today's global village.
Become a first money agent.
Well, that's it from the nation's capital. It's over now to Teniola, who is standing by in Lagos for business news.
Thanks a lot, Gloria. Welcome to Business News. After years of disagreement, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development today announced a major breakthrough on global minimum corporate tax rates. The Secretary General of the OECD, Matthias Cormann, said in a statement the global deal to ensure big companies pay a minimum tax rate of 15% and make it harder for them to avoid taxation has been agreed by 136 nations. However, the OECD scribe mentioned that 4 countries, Nigeria, Kenya, Pakistan and Sri Lanka, had not joined the agreement. The Abdul Samad Rabiu Africa Initiative has provided a grant of 1 billion naira tertiary education infrastructure grant to the Nnamdi Azikiwe University in Anambra State for the construction of a student complex in the institution. This is the last of the 6 tertiary institutions to benefit from the ASR Africa Tertiary Education Grant Scheme, drawn from the ASR Africa's annual $100 million Africa Fund for Social Development and Renewal. Speaking at the event, the Managing Director of ASR Africa, Udo Obon, said the initiative was already in talks with the management of the university to ensure that the project will benefit the university community. ASR Africa is the brainchild of Abdul Samad Rabiu, founder and chairman of Boa Group.
We hope to be able to kick this project off as soon as the university can constitute a team that will allow us to interact with the management of ASR Africa to fine-tune the designs. It's an excellent and very lovely design. Also, the choice of your project, like I discussed with the VC, we had a series of discussions. The choice of the project fits directly into what we want as an organization. We look for high-impact projects with the highest number of beneficiaries, accessible to all genders, to the university community as a whole, and what will also stimulate a solid learning environment and also attract more development.
Part of what we have done so far, this is the last lap of the university intervention of 1 billion naira development grant. One university per geopolitical zone, and the area universities, their project have commenced. It has even reached advanced level. I think this is the last because we were unable to make it to come to this university in time. But notwithstanding, if your records and your documentation are done very well, we assure you that in the next 1 month, 2 months, this project will commence.
Now let's head over to the stock market, where the bull has maintained its dominance across 5 trading sessions in the new month, with month-to-date gains at 1.6%. Ini John Mekwa has the details.
It's the last one for the week. Now, for the 3rd consecutive session, FBN Holding has been leading top trade. Although today is not as impressive as yesterday, but it boosted activities at the NGX with a transaction of almost 155 million units of its shares, worth 1.54 billion naira. Profit taking can be noticed here as it shed 20 kobo from its share price to close at 9 naira 80 kobo. The financial services still dominates top trades, leading the counter by 1.20%. Consumer goods was down, so also was oil and gas. Now, the activity chart wears a very different color today, a sizable reduction in the number of volume and value, even the number of deals. Investors may have started taking profit, but it's still a bullish trade. And the all-share index still maintains its run towards the 41,000 level with 0.1 gain today. What a profitable week it's been. Next week may be better. We'll keep our fingers crossed. That's the stock market report. I'm Ini John Mekwa.
And that's Business News Tonight. It's back to Bukola for the rest of the news at 10.
Thank you, Teniola. Prominent business magnate and philanthropist Captain Idahosa Wells Okunbo, who died on the 8th of August 2021, has been laid to rest in Benin City, the Edo State capital. Glowing tributes were paid to the professional commercial pilot who served as chairman or director on various company boards from agro-allied, petroleum, telecommunications, and banking industries.
The body of late Idahosa Okunbo, escorted by family, arrives for his funeral service. The family is joined by close associates, friends, and top government functionaries to pay last respect to the late business tycoon. The officiating minister takes his sermon from the book of Ecclesiastes. The message is that there is time for everything.
A time to cry and a time to laugh. A time to grieve and a time to dance.
Who feels it, they say, knows it, as Captain Okunbo's children extol their father.
He wasn't too busy to impact people. He wasn't too busy, no matter the heights he got to touch lives. And to me, this is what embodied the greatest of virtues, service.
The greatest tribute you could give Captain Idahosa Wells Okunbo is to continue to live in love and let mercy be your guiding light.
Speaking on behalf of the government delegation, Governor Godwin Obaseki describes late Idahosa Wells as an exemplary Edo citizen.
He embodied hard work, perseverance, dexterity, and acumen which espoused his Edo heritage. Captain was a philanthropist who gave lavishly of himself and his resources. He will be remembered for his undying love for Edo people.
An accomplished businessman, the late Idahosa Okunbo was born on January 7th, 1958. He died on the 8th of August, 2021.
Journalists Maria Ressa from the Philippines and Dmitry Muratov from Russia have received congratulations from around the world on winning the Nobel Peace Prize for their efforts to protect freedom of expression. The prize is the first for journalists since 1935. Let's head over to our London studios where Simon Pusey has more on this and other international news on Around the World in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. 2 journalists have won the Nobel Peace Prize for their fight to defend freedom of expression in the Philippines and Russia.
The Nobel Peace Prize for 2021 to Maria Ressa and Dmitry Muratov.
Announced at the Norwegian Nobel Institute in Oslo, the committee described Maria Ressa and Dmitry Muratov as representative of all journalists who stand up for this ideal. Mr. Muratov was described as defending freedom of speech in Russia under increasingly challenging conditions, while Ms. Ressa was commended for using freedom of expression to expose abuse of power and the use of violence in the Philippines. They were chosen out of 329 candidates.
I guess what this just shows is that that the Nobel Peace Prize Committee realized that a world without facts means a world without truth and trust. And if you don't have any of those things, you certainly can't conquer coronavirus. You can't conquer climate change. I've been saying this over and over, and it feels a little bit like, Sisyphus rolling the rock up the hill. And when you get attacked in the process of trying to roll the rock up the hill, you just kind of dodge, you keep going. And it's a shock. But the fact that a journalist from the Philippines and a journalist from Russia won the Nobel Peace Prize tells you about the state of the world today and the state of the Philippines.
A suicide bomber has targeted a mosque in the northern Afghan city of Kunduz during Friday prayers, killing at least 50 people. Images on social media showed bodies and debris inside the mosque used by the minority Shia Muslim community. No group has yet claimed responsibility for the attack. Members of Iraq's security forces have cast their votes 2 days ahead of the election for the general public. Today's early ballot allows members of the security forces, the internally displaced and prisoners to cast their votes. Iraq's armed forces count over 1 million members and more than 250,000 fighters are deployed to secure polling stations. The Polish government is playing with fire, that's according to Luxembourg's foreign minister. Jean Asselborn made the warning after Poland's highest court ruled that some parts of the European Union treaties are incompatible with the country's constitution. It ruled that some parts of EU treaties are incompatible with the Polish constitution, challenging a pillar of European integration and sharply escalating a dispute between Brussels and Warsaw. Guinea's new Prime Minister, Mohamed Baigouvi, has called for unity to ensure a smooth transition to civilian rule. Mr. Baigouvi told journalists his administration will be a government with a specific mission and will be honest about what we can do and what we must do. Mr. Baigouvi will oversee the transition of the country to civilian rule following the overthrow of Alpha Conde's government in September by the Mamadi Doumbouya-led military junta, the National Rally and Development Committee. Drone footage has revealed a secondary lava stream from the La Palma volcano engulfing greenhouses and plantations on its way to the sea. The lava stream, which got separated from the main one, which has already reached the sea, is due to touch the Atlantic Ocean entering between the beaches of Los Guires and El Charcon. La Palma Airport has also been forced to close due to the worsening air quality and changing weather conditions. And finally, Egypt is pushing ahead with a new project to restore historic Cairo, a sprawling but now rapidly crumbling 1,000-year-old World Heritage Site. The plan aims to revitalise and promote Cairo as a tourist attraction while the government prepares to move to a futuristic new capital in the desert. Low-rise apartments will be built on vacant lots in the historic district, where residents and workshops will relocate as dilapidated structures are reconstructed and restored. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel studios in Lagos.
Welcome to Sports News. Paris Saint-Germain's Lionel Messi, Manchester United's Cristiano Ronaldo, Bayern Munich's Robert Lewandowski and Chelsea's duo of Jorginho and Kante are all on the 30-man 2021 shortlist for the Men's Ballon d'Or award. The prestigious Ballon d'Or, organized by France Football, is awarded annually to the world's best footballer. The winner of the award will be announced on the 29th of November at Paris Theatre du Châtelet. And test events for the Beijing 2022 Winter Olympics began today in China. The events kicked off with speed skating competitions amongst some foreign athletes at the National Speed Skating Oval. All staff and journalists are required to wear masks inside the venue as part of the COVID-19 prevention measures, and the interviews take place via video link. And that will be all on Sports News. Is back to you.
Thank you, Coyote. And the main news again. Finance Minister Zainab Ahmed today gave a breakdown of the 2022 budget. Federal government to spend more on security, national population and housing census. Thank you for your company tonight, and from all of us here, it's good night.